Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the Killin Smallz podcast. I am your host, Mike Small. Well, there are no sports going on right now to speak of, as you all know, so we need something to focus on, and that is something we know is going to happen very soon, the NFL Draft. The content in this podcast is fantastic if you are a football fan. We have two of America's best football guests to join us today in terms of the draft and the business of football. First, we'll kick it off with Adam Caplan from SIrius XM NFLRadio, then Bucky Brooks from the NFL Network. Both are very well connected. We'll share some great insights on what to look forward to over the next couple of weeks. Before we bring Adam on first, I invite you to subscribe to the Killin Smallz podcast on Apple, Spotify, or any other way you get your podcasts. Also, please give me a follow at Real Mike Small on Twitter, and I'll follow you right back. We are a proud part of the Painted Lines podcast network. You can go to paintedlines.com as well as the YouTube channel. Enjoy the show, everybody.
Hi, this is Kenny Albert. You're killing me, Smallz. Now back to the podcast.
All right, we welcome back Adam Caplan, friend of the podcast, second appearance. Adam, thanks for joining.
Mike, good to talk to you tonight. Hope everyone is well in podcast listening land. We're certainly challenging times, but thank goodness we're going to have an NFL draft.
Well, that's what I want to talk about, because one of the things that you and I talked about a lot last time was the quarterback position, and you said that's a passion of yours, and it's something that we all have to look forward to for this upcoming draft, because there's four really fascinating quarterbacks that are going to be probably picked early in the first round. So I want to talk to you about that. But as far as the business of the NFL, thank goodness we have something to look forward to, right?
That's it. That's why I made that comment. I know some people think they should delay it.
No, we need it.
Some of this are the same people said we should not have free agency now. So, and I know those people complain about free agency happening, including some of the general managers I talked to. They're actually glad that they have work, and we've, as you mentioned, something we have to look forward to. It's important because there's no professional sport going on other than National Football League in our country. And I understand the sensitivity to everything that's going on, but, I work out of my home and I'm talking to general managers who are working out of their home and hanging out with their kids. It's something they've never been able to do before. They're actually, Michael, sort of enjoying being at home in a way, but would they rather be in their office? Yes. But we only control what we can control, and you just deal with the hand that you're dealt, and you just live with it. There's nothing you can do about things you have no control over.
What do you think it's going to be like? I mean, you don't know, but it's in a couple of weeks from now, and there's going to be only a couple of people in a war room, and, they're not going to get a chance to work out candidates. They may talk to some of them on Zoom, but what do you think will be different?
Yeah, so Michael, some of the teams, actually a bunch of teams, they were smart. They saw where this may be headed. So I know the Titans brought at least 8 players into their building, I'm told. I know the Eagles had players in for visits. A bunch of teams did. But yes, there were no pro days.
Yep.
After the first couple, then they were all canceled. If you didn't bring any players in, you're screwed, because you're not, unless you interviewed them at the combine or the Senior Bowl, then you have not gotten in front of these players. So, as you said, and teams are doing it, they're doing Zoom meetings with the players. Sometimes it's just the position coach with the player. Sometimes it might be the general manager and the head coach with the player, depending on what they think they need. Look, by the way, this is nothing new. Coaches have always been doing this. This has been going on for years. But now they're doing it en masse because they don't have access to the players that they're building. That's the difference. And then once they get to draft day, there are going to be significant restrictions in terms of how many people could be in your draft room. Wherever you're doing it, the Saints are going to do it at a bar or brewery near them, which is kind of cool. Kind of wish a lot of teams would do that, even when everything's back to normal.
Yeah.
How cool would that be? But obviously they're not going to have fans there. So yeah, it's going to be different. It's just going to be weird. Look, the draft will not be in front of a crowd. By the way, look, it was supposed to be in Las Vegas. You know what else has got canceled? The March owners meetings this week, Michael. As we talk, I would be in Palm Beach, Florida, at the Breakers Hotel. That's the first owners meetings I'm missing in 20 years. By the May meeting, it's obviously severely going to be challenged to have that one in Los Angeles. I would be at that one. The league hasn't canceled it yet, but as they're learning, they're getting a lot of work done over the phone. So look, this is what's changed in the NFL world lately.
It's the same thing in the business world, right? I mean, we have a lot of, in my industry, we have a lot of meetings, and we've figured out a way around it and said, okay, what are we looking to accomplish at these meetings? And we could actually do that by phone. And, you end up being okay. I mean, when you think about an owners meeting, the CBA has been signed. Some of the rule changes have been made. What are you really missing from that?
It's what coaches tell me, because all the NFL head coaches go and the general managers go and team presidents and business people from the NFL go. It's the interaction that you have. It's developing more relationships. Yeah, you look, you're going to see these people at some point probably during the year. Sometimes you don't, especially for the head coaches, because they're working almost all the time. But for me, it's totally networking. That's in addition to catching up what's going on in the league, it's developing better relationships on my end with general managers and personnel people who are there. By the way, some agents go to the owners' meetings, which is interesting. The March one, there are 4 or 5 agents that go every year because they still have some free agents left, and you're trying to get them signed. It's good, and it's also it's probably the most relaxed that NFL people are when you're around them is at these owners' meetings. It's usually in a warm climate with their family, and there's usually a dinner every Monday night or Tuesday night at the owners' meetings where they invite all the media with every NFL team. It's actually pretty cool.
I'm thinking about actual draft day, and I think there's good. The last year there was a lot of action in the first round, a lot of trades, and I'm trying to think of how that might be different this year. There's less people in the room to consult with. Do you think that's going to promote more trading, less trading? Have anything to do with it? I'm just thinking that maybe there'll be less bureaucracy to make a decision.
Well,
maybe you don't have relationships with certain people because they won't be there.
Well, what's going to happen is this is just what a couple personnel guys said, that because you're not getting better access to the late round picks, because let's say they were not invited to the combine, which by the way happens more often than not with players that deserve to be there, that you plan to work out privately or have them into your building for a visit or go to the pro day. If you don't get them, you might not draft them because you don't have all the information. So a couple personnel people explained to me was, look, we may wind up trading a couple 7th round picks because we just don't feel good about taking those players. We'll just move them for future picks. And here's another thing, Michael, this is the most impactful thing, talking to agents. After the draft, there's the race to sign undrafted free agents. I talked to some agents that said, look, they're going to get these deals done well before, at least they plan to, well before, during the 7th round or even before the draft starts. They go, look, as well as I do, my guy's going to go late, if not at all. If he doesn't get drafted, you've got a chance to get this deal done now. Let's get this done because remember, and Michael, you just brought this up, not the guys who would be calling from NFL teams to call agents, they're always in the same building. Now they're not. They're at their home. Scouts do. Scouts of the area, they're given certain players that they know and go, okay, here's your budget. Go sign it. Go get this done. Well, you can't confer with them because you're not in the same building. So it's a little bit different. There could be some challenges here. Now we're talking about it. And from my talks with people, there's certainly going to be some unique challenges.
It's interesting when you watch, there's a lot of teams that often do deals with each other. And, off the top of my head, I know Philadelphia and Miami have done a lot of deals together over the last
New
several
England,
years.
The Eagles with the Patriots, Eagles with the Jets.
With the Chiefs.
Yeah, for sure.
So would you think that those things are more likely to happen this go around? You're just going to deal with people that you know and are easy to deal with at this point if you're going to try to move up or down?
Yeah, I could see that, certainly. But the thing is, right now, you're having the big trades or the big talks. Because what happens is, as you start the talks now, you go, hey, listen, if our guy's on the board, we're going to want to move up. If he gets close, hey, let's get the ball rolling. What's it going to take to move up? And you start having these discussions. You also lean on people you've got better relationships with. Because talking to general managers, there's certain people that they know also will expedite this stuff quickly. That you only get a certain amount of time on the phone, and you have to kind of know where you're going. And yeah, you're right. It definitely helps when you have relationships with people. But Michael, it's so unique. We've never gone through anything like this. look, in coming out of lockout in 2011, we didn't have an off season. We had a very short free agency. Remember, it started in July after the lockout was over, and it was crazy. I mean, you just basically it. I know that the draft and free agency are different times, but free agency was so short because it was hugged up right against. It was the first time that I can remember. I'm sure it was decades ago, but before I was covering the league, where the draft happened before free agency. That was crazy. Now we have free agency now, but the problem is if this thing extends to, we're assuming most people are been reasonable about this, is that we're probably not going to have an off season. We won't have the June OTA, which is in the middle of June. That's the last one before coaches have vacations. There might not be that lag time anymore. We might have a shortened. The coaches may only have 2 weeks off. I mean, from mid-June to the end of the month, they may not have the kind of time off. So a lot of things have changed here.
No, you're right. And so let's get right into the draft. I think this is the time, we got a couple of weeks right before it starts that the posturing begins. So my theory about the posturing is this. Today, in the last 2 days, it's come out, reported by ESPN as well as in Miami, that the Dolphins are less enamored with Tua Tagovailoa than they have been. To me, that's sending a signal to Detroit, hey, we're not going to give up much to trade up with you. Or do you think Joe Burrow could be in play? It seemed like a done deal that Joe Burrow was going into Cincinnati. Would you be shocked if he were traded? So, obviously these four quarterbacks are the big talk of the draft going in. Wondering if you could put your prognostication hat on and give us a feel as to what could or couldn't happen.
Well, here's what I could tell you from talking to people that I trust. A lot of the guys are the same guys I talk to every year to have a good idea of where players should go and the value of players. My sense is that the first two picks are going to be Burrow. I mean, I've felt that way since January, to be honest with you. Chase Young is the second best player. I don't think it's even debatable from people that I trust.
Might be the best.
Will the Redskins keep the pick? See, that's when you have a new coaching staff and a new front office, you don't have access to the way that they think, because this is new for them. And by the way, this is the first time that Ron Rivera as the head coach has had personnel control. So you don't know for sure. Chase Young clearly is the second best player. It doesn't mean that the Redskins will do that. And then you look at the Dolphin situation and their quarterback situation, how they're going to do it. I mean, that's the thing, Michael. Obviously, they need to know the future of their position at quarterback is for them. I mean, it's just got to happen. If they don't get the guy in this draft, you have to really wonder what they're doing. Because remember, no one was more aggressive in free agency than this team. So now it's just a matter of, okay, let's get the quarterback situation settled, and then go from there. And Burrow is clearly the number one quarterback. That, again, not debatable. But the question is the Dolphins at 5, you mentioned them. After Burrow goes off the board, a quarterback, Tua is not for everybody. When you talk about character, yes, no question about it. He's not real big, doesn't have a great arm. Mechanics are really good. You love the kid, you love the toughness, you love the smarts. But when I talk to people around the league, not everybody is in love with the talent. The kid, yes. I still think he goes in the top 10, perhaps top 5. I don't think it's a lock. I think that's, when you brought up Miami.
So you wouldn't be shocked if Justin Herbert was picked before him, huh?
I have him as a top 10 guy. I was at the Senior Bowl. He's terrific. Great arm strength, great athlete, big kid, no question about it. I got access to the combine workouts. I got inside. I do every year. I get to watch the quarterback throw. This kid could spin it. With Rose Bowl game, you saw the athleticism. I think he's a top 10 guy. Would I be shocked? No. I am really shocked. Covering this league now for 21 years, I see some funny stuff happen when the Vikings forgot to turn their pick in for Kevin Williams, and they wound up getting him. But remember, there was a mix-up about them getting the pick in on time. I was there. I was at that draft, so I'm like, what the hell's going on? I've never seen anything like that before. No, when I was at the draft in Philly, when the Bears traded up to get Trubisky, look, No, it was never reported, speculated. The Bears kept that quiet. That was shocking. That one surprised me. I didn't see that one coming because they got concerned about the Browns, I think, drafting him. But typically, the hay's in the barn by then. But now, is there a surprise to come in the top 10? It's just going to come down to how they view the overall value for each player. But, man, if Chase Young doesn't go at 2, this could be a very interesting draft.
So you don't think there's any way that Burrow forces his way out of Cincinnati at this point?
No, he's already talked about it. He made that clear. That's old news. He's okay with going at 1. He said, in fact, when he did an interview on SIrius XM NFLRadio, he said, he did a bad job of not making it clear. He goes, he's okay with whoever goes. If the Bengals keep the pick, he's fine with it. Yeah, I'm sure he'd like to go somewhere where they can win. But they by the way, the Bengals are pretty aggressive in free agency for a change.
Yeah, they were. They seemed to have a whole new attitude and outlook on what they're doing. And getting back to what we talked about earlier with COVID-19, I've got to think that hurts Tua to be able to show people that he's healthy. I mean, you can hear doctors talk and you can see a selfie video of him making a few throws, but that's not going to take the place of a thorough examination.
Right, because you can get the scans and they'll get the scans. The challenge, though, is not just now. It's you're evaluating every injury that he's had. It's risk versus reward. You love the kid, the character, the moxie, the toughness, the smarts. You love that he was a terrific college quarterback. You love that he played in the Alabama program. That's all great. But it has nothing to do with his future. His future at going in the top 5 is medical. It's nothing to do with anything else. And if you're not comfortable with it, you're not drafting him. There's no debate on that. That's the way it works in the National Football League. And Lee Steinberg, his agent, obviously has, and Chris Cabot, who I know very well, they clearly have to make sure they got the word out. And they're doing a good job by there. Chris went on the record saying he's cleared. He's good. Well, that's great from your standpoint because you've got access to what medical information that you have as representing him. But the clubs are going to have their own evaluation. You make a fair point. They've got to be able to look at him one way or the other. And obviously at the combine, they had a chance to, teams that were interested. But that one's a wild card. I would say, yeah, I'm glad you brought Tua up because he's clearly a wild card. I would say in the top 10 where he goes. Chase Young, if by chance, which would surprise me if he doesn't go at number 2. And then kind of where the receivers are going to go. If Jerry Jeudy, will he be number 1? Will Ruggs go number 2? Who's going to be the 3rd, 4th, 5th quarterbacks? Jordan Love, I love. I'm intrigued by the kid, but you got to get through the interception numbers last year. I mentioned you brought up Herbert.
Yep.
It's going to be certainly an interesting 1st and 2nd round.
And you're going to get a great receiver in the 3rd or 4th round this year, aren't you?
I wouldn't say great, but the kid that I like, who I've met with, pretty friendly with a couple of receivers coaches who've been in the league for a while, and they both brought up Devin Duvernay, who's probably going to go in the 3rd round out of Texas. He had a monster year. Oh my goodness gracious! He went from being totally off the radar. He got moved as a senior to the slot, and he went from like 40 some odd catches to over 100. So those are the stories when you talk about what this draft is. Think about it. This kid, based on his tape and his numbers, should be a 2nd round pick, but I don't know that he gets it. I think he's probably going to be a 3rd round pick. Michael, this draft is so good at receiver. I've never seen anything like in my 21 years. I went back. I save all my notes from each year. Just about I could find most of them. And I cannot find a year where I see if every team needed a receiver, I think you could literally see 30 in the first 3 rounds. You're not going to see that many, but that's how good this draft is at receiver.
No, that's what I'm saying. You've got 4 good quarterbacks. You've got a bunch of good receivers, to your point. You've got 4 or 5 really good running backs. It's a great year for the skill positions. Not as much for the offensive line. A couple of good defensive linemen, but it's really going to be a lot of fun. Adam, thank you so much for joining us again on the Killin Me Smallz podcast. Tell everybody how to follow you.
You just go to follow me at Caplan NFL, Caplan NFL, and look for my work announcements, which are going to come in May and June. See what I'm doing next. I've got my Eagles podcast called Inside the Birds with my friend Jeff Mosher. Our traffic is jumped by 3. It's amazing when people actually know what you're doing, how things could grow. So we appreciate everyone's support with that. And,
I've been a fan of Jeff's for a while, to be honest with you. I think the 2 of you guys are great
guy,
together.
Yeah, really good friend of mine, good guy, really talented. And then I'll be on SIrius XM NFL Radio. This is year 17 for me, and also on the Fantasy Channel, which I started up in 2010 with my friend John Hansen. We were the show which we had on the NFL Channel. We moved it to the Fantasy Channel in 2010, and still doing that, and love doing it.
And you were the guy that started NFLinjuries.com.
Footballinjuries.com.
Footballinjuries.com. Sorry about that. So
correct. We sold it. We sold the site. My partners and I, we sold it to John Hansen, Mr. Fantasy Guru himself. And I would tell people also, listen for an announcement from John. John's got a major announcement he's making for his business purposes. I can't get into it, but let's just say I'll be involved.
That's fantastic. I am a big fan, and I really enjoy having you. And I know you're busy. I know you have a lot to do. Please stay safe with your family, and thanks for joining the podcast.
You too, Michael. I appreciate it. And let's talk after the draft.
You got it. So normally at this point in the podcast, I tell you to get fired up and give my guy Kobe Fryer a call to help you with your car needs. But we're in a different time right now, as everybody knows, in isolation with COVID-19. So I thought I'd bring Kobe onto the podcast to talk a little bit about the car business needs. A couple of the questions that I thought about were, what if your lease is up this month and you have to trade it in? Or what if you can't make your payment? Or if you have a lease situation? What are some things that they can do? And thank you for volunteering to help our listeners.
Well, thanks for having me on, Mike. A longtime listener. Like I said, I've been here since the beginning. It is crazy, crazy times. And the most important thing is keep our staff safe and keep our customers safe and keep everybody safe. Like, this isn't a time where we're really thinking about pushing out cars, but there are circumstances, there are necessities. People are in panic mode, and if you follow me on Facebook, you follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram, any of that stuff, get fired up, or just me, Kobe Fryer, on Facebook, you'll see I talk about it a lot. And, whether you're my customer, whether you're not my customer, I really don't care. If people are struggling, now's the time where I have 30 years of experience, so I can help them. If it's as simple as negotiating a deferment for them on their payments to our banks or their bank that they're financed with, I can help them out with that. I can, script it for them, or I can even make the call for them. I've got no problem. If somebody's lease is up, we are, Governor Murphy in New Jersey, as of Monday, said that we could sell cars by appointment, curbside, if we took every precaution. So we do have the ability to help people out that their leases are up, or God forbid they were in an accident, they're totaled, or they need a car, and they can just contact me, and we'll do most of the negotiations will be done by Zoom. All the paperwork will be done back and forth through email, and we'll deliver them the car. No test driving, anything like that. We just don't want contact with them or with us. If they don't like the car, something happens, I'll give them 4 days to change their mind. No questions asked.
That's great. Kobe, how can people get in touch with you?
Easiest way is my cell phone number. It's not like I'm going anywhere. I'd love some human contact. So 609-706-2101, or Facebook, Instagram, get fired up, Facebook Kobe Fryer, or that's COBYFRIER, or LinkedIn Kobe Fryer. Like I said, reach out to me with any questions. I have a lot of solutions for your car needs. I have a lot of solutions for your insurance needs. If I don't know the answer, I can find out for you. It's pretty simple.
Or you can get in touch with me, and I will put you in touch with Kobe through the podcast. Thanks, Kobe.
Hi, this is Kenny Albert. You're killing me, Smallz. Now back to the podcast.
Okay, let's bring on Bucky Brooks to the podcast. So Bucky and I knew each other when Bucky was a freshman at the University of North Carolina. Buck, I don't know if you remember this. You guys came in after a 1-10 season, and I remember that VMI game was your very first game. Carolina won like 49-7. You had a bunch of catches. Then you guys went 1-10 again, but ended up turning the program around. That had to be a really special thing to be a part of.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. Having grown up as a Carolina fan, I always wanted to be a part of the program. My first love at Carolina was basketball, but having an opportunity to play football where some of my heroes, Amos Lawrence, Winfield, and Lawrence Taylor, all those guys that played, I just really wanted to be a part of it. And so even when Coach Ryan was recruiting and they were coming off a 1-10 season, I just felt strongly about the university and about Coach Brown that we were going to find a way to get it done. And it took some time, but we finally were able to kind of turn it around and kind of left it in a better place than we got it.
And it's really been fun watching your career blossom as a sports writer. And well, obviously you went into the NFL for a few years, did very well, but you weren't one of those, athletes turned sportscaster overnight. You really had to work your way up to it.
Yeah, like I think for me, I can appreciate the grind. I've been really, really fortunate to have a lot of people that have kind of helped me along the way. Some of those guys were Tar Heels. The late Stuart Scott took an interest. He had known me since high school. When I was able to reach out to him and talk to him about the business, he was more than willing to share his time and kind of give me advice along the way. And then it was about just trying to find ways to put myself in situations to learn more about the craft. And then when I got opportunities, to try and make the most of those opportunities.
But you didn't start off that way, right? You started off as a scout, so you kind of went the way a lot of people. You made yourself more valuable as a sports writer and sports anchor because you had that knowledge, right?
It's funny because being in the media world was never on my radar. To be honest, I had dreams and aspirations of wanting to go from playing to being in the front office to being able to run a team and make decisions to help build a championship team. However, it was funny because the internet craze was popping. It was about 2005, 2006. Pat Kerwin was writing for CNN SI. And he was the first front office executive that I can remember kind of moving towards the media career. And he was just kind of like share insights, share some stuff that was behind the curtain. And that kind of prompted me to think about, man, it would be really, really cool to share your opinion to the masses as opposed to the people that are just in the building.
So what do you enjoy most? Do you enjoy the writing? Do you enjoy the scouting? Do you enjoy the NFL Network, getting on the mock drafts and doing some of that stuff? What's your passion around all this?
I enjoy it all. I kind of like being able to touch all parts of the media world while combining what I've learned along the way as a player and then as a scout. I feel really fortunate that I've been around great football minds all of my life, from my high school coach, Earl Smith, to Coach Brown at Carolina, to Marv Levy and Mike Holmgren, John Gruden, Marty Schottenheimer, Tom Coughlin. All of those guys are either in the Hall of Fame, they've won Super Bowls, or Marty Schottenheimer is the only outlier because he won 200 games. But everyone has been really successful. And then my job has been to take all of that stuff that I've learned, all the nuggets that have been dropped on me, and find a way to spit it out in a media form, whether that's writing, whether that's TV, whether that's doing podcasts and radio, to try and take those things in a very concise fashion, give them to the people to help them maybe understand the game a little more. But if you ask me what I really, really enjoy the most, writing is what I really enjoy. And it's because it's probably the hardest to take something that is in your head and put it on paper and get it out in a way that's coherent. But I enjoy the challenge, and it's different. Most former athletes don't go that way. And because my career as a pro player was not very distinguished, writing gave me an opportunity to kind of get a leg up on some of the others who were more established as players. And it just kind of put me in the arena and gave me an opportunity to kind of carve out a little career for myself.
So if you remember our interactions, I was writing for Carolina Blue newspaper as well as doing Coach Brown's TV show and all the player features. And I think you now have a new appreciation for what I used to deal with, right? I used to have to sit in your training table waiting for you guys to eat lunch and then stalking you so you guys would give me an interview. Do you remember that?
I do remember, and I remember Carolina Blue really, really well because my dad is probably the biggest Tar Heel that I know. And so we used to have subscriptions to Carolina Blue, and we would read about all of the insights and the inside behind the scenes on the basketball team and the football team and everything around Tar Heel athletics. So it was a big part of me growing up. It was a big part of my childhood and my life. And so I've always had an appreciation. I never knew how hard it was, obviously, until I got into it. But even now, when there seems to be an attack on journalism and journalists in our country, I have a great appreciation for truth tellers, guys who are able to kind of spit out the facts and bring stories to life. It's something that is really, really hard, really challenging, and I have a great appreciation for those who are in the field.
No, that's great. And you do a fantastic job of it. It's been a pleasure following your career for sure since we knew each other a little bit all that time ago. I'm really interested in one of the things that you do that seems to get the most attention, which is your mock drafts. Now, I'm in the Philadelphia area, and you had Henry Ruggs dropping to the Eagles, and people were pretty excited about that around here. But my question is, what does it go into in terms? What is the effort that you put into a mock draft? Are you calling people with teams? Are you just evaluating needs and taking your best shot? There's some really bad mock drafts out there, but there's some good ones too. And I'm just interested in the background on one of those things.
It's really, really hard coming from my side, like coming from like a real scouting background. Mock drafts are something that we paid attention to, but lightly. It's not something that we would really do a ton in the room. We would pay attention to what people said about mock drafts, like Rick Dawson was one that we'd always paid attention to. Mel Kiper was one. But we paid attention to those because we felt like those guys were fed inside information. And if we were able to track them and connect the dots, it may help us when it came to just kind of understanding what the teams around us may do. From a personal standpoint, when it comes to mock drafts, some of it is what you hear. Like you talk to scouts and you try and get a feel for who they like, what teams like, which players fit their style of play. And then some of it is just trying to use that information combined with how the players are on the board and being able to kind of open up and think as if I'm Howie Roseman or I'm Jerry Jones or I'm Ron Rivera and his staff, and which players make the most sense for us at this selection. It's a bit of a guessing game, and what I enjoy about it is, like, obviously it's a conversation starter, but what I hate about it is people believe that your opinion is really revealed in a mock draft, and really mock drafts are what you think others think about players, not necessarily what you think about a player.
Have you ever gone back like 5 years and said, wow, I got this percentage of them right in the first round, second round, et cetera?
A little bit, but not really. I tend to hone more in on top 5 lists, top 50 lists, because that's how you really believe a player is, how talented they are, how you expect them to play, and those things. The toughest thing about scouting for a media entity is you're not scouting for a team. And so when you're scouting for a team, there's a certain set of criteria that you're using to rank guys on the board. Some of that has to do with how they fit in within our scheme, how the character and all that other stuff fits into the locker room. When you're on the outside, you're really just ranking players for the talent. And you're trying to say, okay, this guy's really talented. I like him more than player B. And so I'm going to put him at 2, the other guy at 3. And so it's a lot more subjective on this side. And so you're kind of wading into unfamiliar waters because you're not with the team and you don't have like that hard and fast set of criteria that you really would judge people on.
So I'm looking at your mock draft, and you have Miami passing on Tua and taking a defensive tackle. That, I think, would send shockwaves throughout Florida.
Yeah, but it's also part of, like, when you do like 5 or 6 iterations of the mock draft, you have to find ways and tipping points to kind of change it.
Yeah.
And you're also trying to think about, well, what are different ways for this team to kind of get to the right answer? And so I think in the last version, when I had them taking a defensive tackle or an offensive tackle, it had more to do with, well, let's just say that they don't get to it. They don't make a move to get to it. They don't like to it because of the medical. Where could they go? Well, let's give them a blue chip player at 5, and maybe there's another quarterback available at 18. And I think I may have pegged them with Justin Herbert as that pick. But so what it is just an exercise in, okay, how can we manipulate and play this draft board game? If I take this player here, what would be potentially available if we had picks later. So that's kind of a part of it. It's a bit of a guessing game, and you're trying to have these exercises like crossword puzzles where you're trying to challenge yourself in a bunch of different ways. Well, what happens if something unexpected happens before this team picks? How do they respond to who's available? Surprisingly or shockingly, this thing here, should we take him or should we just stick to what everyone expects us to do?
No, I think they're a lot of fun. Do you ever get any grief from because you deal with a lot of, you mentioned some of the general managers and scouts, et cetera. You ever get a nasty phone? You don't have to say who it was, obviously, but you ever get a nasty call saying, "What are you thinking?"
I mean, I get funny phone calls and texts all the time, whether it's about that, whether it's missed or whatever. A lot of guys are trying to kind of keep me honest and kind of letting me know, like, you might want to move this player because of this issue, or hey, have you thought about this player because this player is really, really hot and buzzing. And so, fortunately, most of the conversations that I get from people in the league are fairly positive. It's the outside voices that can be a little negative when it comes to it.
So with the COVID-19 situation going on, everybody's in isolation. We're still moving forward with the draft. I know it's got to be, there's going to be a little bit more. I would assume if you're a general manager, you're going to take less risk now because you're not going to get to work the player out like you'd really want. You have to depend on the combine and some of the game film. How do you think it affects this draft coming up in general, and how does it affect your job around it?
In general, it will affect teams a little bit in terms of you'll have a tendency to be a little more conservative and deal with the players that you know, meaning the players that you're able to get complete profiles on, guys that were at the combine, guys that also showed up at all-star games. They kind of have a leg up on the competition because people were able to talk to them. You were able to kind of get around them, get a better feel for them. Those who attended the combine, the medical stuff is completed. It hurts the guys who are at schools where they didn't get the invite and they're waiting on their pro day to kind of show their talents to evaluators. And so those guys won't get a chance. And then depending upon how they limit Zoom and FaceTime, you may be able to talk to guys, but it's still not like having someone in your building for 24 hours. As it relates to the evaluation from the film, I think actually it should be more of a pure draft, meaning one that isn't as tainted by combine and pro day workouts. It should be a draft that is more on the tape and what you saw from them on tape. And I think if people are just sticking to what they saw in the fall, you'll see teams maybe have better drafts because they don't overthink it. The scouting staffs that really lean heavily on the film evaluation and try and get everything done shortly after the end of the regular season, those are the teams that are most successful because their analysis is based off of purely how a player played and not all the other stuff that sometimes can cloud the evaluation.
Now, it's going to be interesting, and I love your comment about teams not trying to outsmart themselves. There's probably a lot of teams that, the people that want to be the self-proclaimed genius are probably going to not do that this year, and they're probably going to kind of stick to their board a little bit, I would assume, and we may get a cleaner draft with a lot less head-scratching moves, I would assume. Would you think?
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where you try and stick to your board. You try not to you try to avoid paralysis by analysis. You don't want to overanalyze players. You want to keep it as simple as you can. Just take good players. Players that were good in the fall, players that were talked about in the fall, those are typically the better players. Don't overthink the process. If they stick to that, I think you'll be more successful more times than not.
Bucky, thanks so much for joining the Killin' Me Smallz podcast. I hope I can talk into coming back after the draft and we can look and see what happened.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Thank you.